we started selling rubber roofing products, and we opened a shop, and it just went wrong, completely wrong. It didn't work out. Again, we didn't do our profit and losses. We didn't do, certain things. So it didn't work. And that was a real sort of punch in the face, if you like.
Yep. Things don't always work out in business as you had originally planned. And that's exactly what happened to Will and his brother. When they started off in the rubber roofing products, it didn't work out. But you will also hear from Will how that failure managed to get him into the business and the projects that he's doing today because of what he learned. So it isn't always bad news. You sometimes have to learn and go through that before you truly find out what it is that you are destined to do and enjoy doing as well. So listen to Will and find out about his journey.
Staying Alive UK. Share your story.
Welcome to the Share Your Story podcast, Will. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely brilliant to have you on the podcast, Will. And I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you today. We met a few times at networking events, and yeah, I just thought it'd be a good idea to hear about your story and your journey. So everybody that comes on gets asked the first question. Thereafter, it's all over the place. But the one question I do want to ask people is, could you share a little bit about your personal life? So were you born, a bit about your education, where you now live, maybe a bit about your family, but you don't have to, hobbies and interests, just so people get a sense of Will or William O'Keefe, the person behind his business and all of the other things that he does. So over to you.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's William O'Keefe. I was born in Leamington Spa, where I currently live now. I've gone from Leamington a few times in my life to go and live in other parts of the world. My education was something that I really enjoyed, my time at school and college and things like that. But I didn't have any aptitude to stay at school and want to learn. So learning now, I appreciate so much more. So my learning, finished school, didn't really get any great results. The basic, just sort of scraped through.
Yeah.
And then went to study furniture design and manufacture. Love my furniture. And then went on to work as a carpenter with my brother, where we've had sort of various businesses. So you said if you want to talk about your family, to talk about my family, I think my family is a very important part of my life because, yeah, they mean so much to me. I work with my brother, so we have a family business now, which I'm sure we'll come on to later. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm sure I could talk a lot more, Michael.
Yeah.
That gives you a little insight.
Brilliant. Thank you. Let me delve a little bit deeper then. So when you said you've moved around the world, did you move to different countries? Did you live in different countries?
I've only lived in one different country, but I've lived all over in the UK.
Right.
I've been Bristol, Brighton, other places. I've also I met my wife in Barcelona. So I lived in Barcelona for a time, which was good.
And what's your favourite place?
My favourite place, we go to Hungary quite a lot because my wife's Hungarian. So again, I've got a deep passion for Hungary and the Hungarian people, and so I like Hungary.
That's interesting. You don't hear many people talk about Hungary, do you?
No, well, that's it. It's quite a, and this is the fascinating sort of thing actually about connecting with people. I find I don't speak fluent Hungarian, but I speak, enough to know a good lot of Hungarian, and Hungarian people are fascinated when I can they'll speak in Hungarian and then I can at least understand and chip in a little bit. So it goes a long way. I think, again, when you find out different things about people, it's when you've got a little connection in to connect with them, it's amazing. So I find that with the Hungarians a lot.
I mean, it's really unusual because you're a British lad, and the Brits are not famous for speaking other languages, are they?
No.
And so you lived in Spain and worked in Spain making furniture. So that's where you learn Spanish. And people will go, yeah, okay, Spanish. All kids at school now have to learn a bit of Spanish. Not that they hold on to any of it, but they try, and a bit of French and whatever. But you really don't hear anybody saying, oh, yeah, I speak a bit of Hungarian. So...
No. Yeah, but again, going back to even the Spanish, my aptitude to learn at school, I studied Spanish at school, didn't care about the language whatsoever, and then, moved to Spain, and then it became a sort of need and a necessity to do that, and a want. So, and I think it's the same in business, where you get that inner belief or through, so it changes, and I think that's where we learn as people, don't we?
Yeah, you just cut out a bit then for some reason. You said you get this inner belief and then you cut out.
Okay, so you get this inner belief to want to learn and do things, and that carries you through. So
language is an interesting thing, and I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head, because I mean, I just a tiny bit about me and languages. I mean, I'm a Dutchman, and in the Netherlands, people speak at least 3 different languages. My father rather spoke at least 4. But I never got into languages, whether it was German or French. I just didn't enjoy them at all. And the only language I did enjoy was English, because it was the easiest one, but also because my mother was Anglo-Indian, a lot of English was spoken at home. And because we had English TV or English programs with subtitles, it was easier to learn the language that way. But when I came to the UK to live and work, I wasn't confident, because I was still at an age where I should have continued my studies. I wasn't even confident enough to continue my studies, definitely not in English. And it wasn't until you kind of start working and integrating with society in any country that you really have to pick up the language and get into it. And so anybody listening who wants to learn a language, go and live in the country, because that's the best way.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think, Michael, that there was a pressure on you to speak other languages? Because again, it's like the Hungarians, they speak normally a couple of languages at least. Did you have that pressure at all?
Totally.
On you? So yeah, so,
absolutely.
And again, you can take to that or not take to that, can't you? So
and I was frustrated as well, because some of my friends, I had one friend who went to work in the Czech Republic, and he had to work in different factories in the Czech Republic because his father had a company that imported goods from the Czech Republic. So he had to learn the language there. He had to go and work and live in Germany. He already spoke English really well. And he came back from all of his travels being like multilingual. And you do kind of look back and go, oh, I wish I had continued with it. And then when I got into my employer wanted to export to Germany, and then we all used to come into work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we then had German classes. And I still didn't even get into it, it was just... Anyway, so enough about languages.
Yeah.
So, although you enjoyed going to school, you were kind of happy to get out of it and then go to Barcelona. So, was the furniture making, was that your first job then?
That was my job when I went. Actually, my first job was working in a factory where my dad was an engineer. He
Right.
got me a job at Rangemaster, which is a local company in Leamington. So I worked there for a while. I think about a year just after school,
Is that cookers?
Cookers
Yeah.
and fires.
Yeah.
So that was to earn money. So, but again, interesting time, because again, it teaches you a lot of what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So, yeah, and then went on to do carpentry. My brother was already doing carpentry at the time. When he just left school, he went straight into it. So, he's my younger brother, but he had sort of the upper hand on the knowledge of carpentry. And then we sort of both started working together then and formed various businesses.
Okay, so with the carpentry business then, with your brother, how did that all come about? So, and how did you get the business? If you're making, and what kind of stuff were you making?
Okay, well, we started off working for other people.
Yes.
Again, I didn't get on working where I was working in a factory, so I decided, I'm going to start to do what my brother's doing, and went into that. So we worked for various people, building up, and then this was doing sort of all different types of carpentry on roofs, in working doors, all that sort of thing, skirting boards, just your general sort of carpentry. And then we just formed our own company. Then another moved on. We did loft conversions, and then I got more into sales and meeting the clients, and James worked more on the actual sort of production, whereas I work with the people. So we formed into, and then James now we're both working with various investors, also on projects and things like that. So it's just developed, and again, you've got to have a want to do it.
Okay, so fascinating then. So if I've got this right, Will, what you guys did, you learned the craft working for other people to begin with, and then you decided to set up on your own and do it for yourself and do all of the different things. And then you moved more into the front end of the business, and your brother looked after the production side of the business. Have I got it right?
Yes, and this was sort of intermingled with where I'd be doing again some of the work as well, but meeting clients in the evening, and then James would do, so it would drift in and out. But naturally, my brother is, I don't like to say this, but I think he's a better carpenter. He probably says, "Oh no," but yeah, I think James is naturally good at the carpentry, where I found it a little bit harder. I'm more creative. I'm more people orientated. So, yeah, that's how it sort of grew.
And did you?
And again, serving others, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And did you employ people as well then?
We did employ people. Again, on a just on a basis where self-employed. So they weren't sort of part of our business, but they worked sort of for us. So yeah, very much so.
And how many were there?
We had about 16 people on and off. That's various trades.
That's quite a lot, but you pulled them in because as and when you needed, you didn't have them on the payroll as such. You just used them because they were self-employed.
No, it was a subcontract basis, I meant. But yeah, So just on that sort of side. So yeah, and again, that's probably more because we worked with sort of a lot of people.
Sure. And then how has that moved on from there? What direction did that take then? And is the business still going today, or and what's happened next?
Well, those businesses are not going now, not for any sort of bad reason, but for sort of developing to do more things for ourselves. Now we're doing. We had a shop as well. I think we moved it, and then we started selling rubber roofing products, and we opened a shop, and it just went wrong, completely wrong. It didn't work out. Again, we didn't do our profit and losses. We didn't do, certain things. So it didn't work. And that was a real sort of punch in the face, if you like. So, but again, a great lesson for those people out there that have got businesses. It's not all plain sailing, is it? It's not all sugarcoating. It's not all things happen and, you think it's all right and you think everything's going to be all right and you'll spend money and you'll do things, but things don't work out. So, yeah, that business didn't work out. And then we sort of drifted more into the property and doing things for ourselves, working with investors. And now we do serviced accommodation. We do things with the council. We invest our money and other people's money as well. So, we're doing really well. We're doing well.
And so so tell us a little bit about then when the business started to not perform the original business. What effect did that have? Because you were both in the business, you opened this shop, you were still doing the carpentry, you were doing the rubber roofing stuff, and it didn't work. What pressure did that put on the relationship between you and James?
I think it didn't really put that much pressure on our relationship, because I think we've always sort of managed to get through things. We'll work this out. We've got a good relationship, and people find it really funny, actually. I've got a great relationship with my sister as well. Just add that in. Can't let her, not feel left out. So, but yeah, very much so with James. We work it out. But the other side, that's when it can get hard. And but it was the rubber roofing business, I think, that was a big lesson for us both, because again, but that moved us to do something else. So although it was on the whole a bad thing, it moved us to a good thing. So
yeah, I love that you say that, because I call those gifts. And, they are gifts at some level. You don't know what they are when you're in the middle of it, kind of going, oh, what have I done? But as you move through it and you get over it and it moves into a different direction, then you realize that actually this helped us to move into a different direction, which we are now doing. So therefore, in hindsight, it was a gift, right?
Yeah, it was. At the time, it wasn't. But very much so, it's like, oh, we learnt that. We did this, So it was just eye-openers, and again, you don't want to make that same mistake again. But again, you're a lot more prepared for it the next time. So that's the way I look at it.
Okay, so when you shared, then you went into property and serviced property and working with the council, you were quite kind of not blasé about it, but you kind of talked about it as if it was just a natural progression. And I'd like to really understand, what was the main motivator or deciding factor that then you decided to become a property investor, going into the whole kind of property scene? How did that come about?
Well, I network. Great question, Michael. I network quite a lot. As you know, you know, met me at a few events. I was networking for my loft business, going to a lot of sort of property meetings in and around the Midlands, and then I came across Simon Zucchi. So, you know, got really interested in his teachings, and then, you know, went on his course. So I'm on the mastermind at the minute, which I'll finish in April. So again, I educated myself because I wanted to do that. So that was a big factor. But when you're in and around a certain area of people, and you just get, again, you get taken by your environment, don't you?
Yes.
So that's what that's how I got into sort of, it developed onto there. And looking back, actually, it's massive that, you know, now I just look at it as like, oh, we do property, we're doing serviced accommodation, we're working with the council, it's sort of second nature now. But from that, basically, from my networking.
So the networking got you exposure to the relevant people to get you the training and the knowledge and expertise, and get yourself trained up to be able to then go into this field that you're in now.
Exactly.
And that's really what people need to do, right? So if let's say there's somebody who wants to do, I don't know, gift card business, they need to go to the right kind of networking events where there are people, I don't know, you could say anybody could buy a gift card, but it's just an example. Go and get educated with other people that are in the gift card industry and learn from them because they have done it before, or indeed listen to this podcast and listen to other people, but also be more specific. You can learn general knowledge, but also much more specific knowledge, which is what you did before you then decided to continue in this property field.
For sure. That's exactly it, Michael. I think as well, you can, again, gift carding, it's very sort of niche, it's different. But again, you could go to one network meeting. You know, not necessarily going to meet somebody who does gift cards or who has knowledge of that field. But again, by going to these events, you'll connect with more people, and that'll lead you to that person.
Yeah.
So I think it just sort of opens up avenues, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Okay. And give us a sense of timing when this happened, when you went into the property field.
So it was about 3 years. Again, I've always sort of worked on properties for other people and for myself a little bit. So sort of 3 years ago, really, we became property investors and property, where we started transacting our money, other people's money. So yeah, about 3 years ago.
So
started to build our own sort of portfolio.
So by then, we will have started coming out of the recession, and the housing prices were, I don't know, where was everything at 3 years ago? I can't remember.
Okay, well, three years ago, I think that, the market's been quite sort of strong over the last, even 3 years. It's sort of been climbing. It wasn't sort of, 27, 28
yeah,
when we had the housing crisis. So it was well before I was actually sort of working more then within, I think we were working as carpenters then. So that really didn't have anything, nothing really, can I say that? Yeah, didn't really have anything to do with knowing about the market or wanting to. I was just involved in the business. But
sure.
Yeah, so later on, I think I think we're in for some changes next year due to the tax implications for landlords. I think a lot are going to be hit. Not hit, but there's going to be some changes where properties are going to be becoming more available. So a good time for new investors and new people wanting to get into property.
Mm. And okay, so it was a pretty good time to get started on it. And of course, when anybody wants to go into any field, you've got to make a judgment whether it's a good time or not a good time. But what have you found? So you've been doing this for kind of 3 years, and if you could think of some, what do you believe have been some of the challenges in your 3 years of being in the property field?
I think one of the big things is thinking that you can do it all yourself. And, definitely, I'm not brilliant at maths. I'm okay. I'm getting better. I tell myself the right things, but, you're either good at something or you're not. So I think, by having those people on board has been like a massive eye-opener to me. The wealth dynamics, I don't know whether you've heard of it, Michael.
Yes, I have.
But the wealth dynamics has been, so I think that's, a really big thing, because James and I have then built a team around that. We've had, someone to come in to help on the sort of account side, building the business, the back end of the business, sort of all the CRM systems and things like that. So yeah, that's probably one of my biggest learnings to date.
Is don't do it all yourself. And then what have been some of the... Yeah, brilliant. And what have been some of the highlights in your 3 years so far?
Some of the biggest highlights are, how creative you can be. It doesn't just have to be, you don't have to go to these, the commercial outfits. You can do it creatively, and by working with others. Again, it takes trust. It takes building that. But that's, one of the... I can't even remember the question there, Michael. What
highlights. What are some of the highlights?
Highlights.
Be specific on creative.
Again,
what things have you done that are creative?
Things we've done that are creative are sort of, the rent-to-rent model, where you don't actually purchase a property. You take it on. And obviously you need all the right paperwork in place. You need to go through the right, have the right agreements in place, but you don't need to buy a property to profit from it. And you can profit from it very well. So again, that's sort of one of the big eye openers for me, that you don't need big, massive chunks of money, although it does help. So yeah, that's one of the, the big eye opener.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. And so where do you see this going then, Will, your current business? Are you using, just explain a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the business. So it's a little bit squidgy at the moment for me, and I'd like to kind of nail it down a little bit and go, okay, so, because you mentioned a few things around council, service departments. So what are the different aspects, and how do you and James get involved? And indeed, you've brought people in to do stuff, but do you employ a team? Just give us a sense of, are there more people in the business employed, or do you use the same model where you use subcontractors? Just give
Again, it's a similar model actually, where you'd use other people, and again, not on an employed basis, but again, where you can all profit from the property, or from the cash flow, the money that's made from the rents or from the flipping of the property. But where I think the biggest thing is sort of working with other people's money as well, where you'll borrow a certain amount of money that will go into building, the property investment, and then you pay the investor back from that, and you both profit. So we're doing sort of more of that at the moment as well, which again, it's crazy because it just works and you build brilliant relationships from it. So, yeah, that's how that sort of works. I can go into a little bit more as well about how that works if you want to, or
just give us a sense of, because I'm trying to paint, your business in a bit more detail so people get a sense of what you're doing, because I think the whole kind of property scene, and it's important to flesh it out a little bit. I think it's important for people to realize this is a real business that people can get involved with themselves, so people might be working for themselves even and have some spare cash that they might be able to do something with, or indeed people are in employment, they're fed up and they may have some cash, or they've got hold of some cash and they could move into this field pretty quickly and make a living out of it. So please expand as much as you can.
Sure. I think as well, people, one of my biggest learnings is that we've got, especially the English, with the whole area of money and asking for money is deemed as a bit sort of cliche, and you can't ask for money. So again, we would work with an investor. They would say, for instance, give 25,000. The 25,000 would go into one deal or a couple of deals where the property, and we're buying to hold and renting, obviously renting out for the rental income as well as the capital growth. But an investment will come in and we'll give a percentage return on that money, or a split of the uplift as well. So there are various ways, you can profit. And I think the key is as well, Michael, property is sort of deemed as a very, it's cold money, it's quite a cold thing, where we're trying to bring an element of, a bit more, how can I say it? Not compassion, but there's, I'm trying to think of the right word here. It's a bit more interactive with people. It's a bit more about the relationship. It's a bit more about building a longer term thing to work with, people and profit for longer.
So it doesn't just become a cold kind of transactional thing. It becomes more of a relationship thing where people get involved for the longer term rather than a transactional term that says, I'm in and I'm out in 6 months' time and that's it. But you kind of...
but it could be a transactional thing as well, depending on... And I think you have to gauge that you have to gauge that sort of what that person wants. But the people we work with sort of tend to, they want to do some things later on. So I see our business massively growing on the rent to rent side, sort of 20 properties. We've got 5 at the minute. So I think, this year is going to be massive growth for us that way.
Yes.
I'm working with other investors as well. Is on the cards. So, yeah.
So, okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. And is this now the main thing, all of the different facets to do with property investing, that's now your main business? What about the furniture side? Is that now completely gone?
It's not completely gone. I'm very passionate about art and design. And I think, again, this is a natural progression where I'm doing more of the serviced accommodation now. So where we'll rent out apartments for a weekend, for people during the week. So I'll start to introduce more of my designs and my craziness as time goes on. So, and I think I keep saying it, a natural progression where you sort of don't sort of see it, but it just happens because you carry on working. within that.
So with your serviced apartments, I'm curious about this because I've been reading about this recently. Because you just mentioned people can rent something for a weekend.
Yeah, you can. Again, there's Airbnb, Booking.com.
I was going to say
different. Yeah.
So your properties are with Airbnb then?
Oh, with Airbnb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can go onto Airbnb if you look in Coventry. You'll find us on, one of our properties there in Leamington, Warwick. So
where do you see Airbnb going? What? I mean, how long have you been involved with Airbnb, and how's that going for you?
We've been involved with Airbnb now for not a long time, actually, for about 3 months?
Right.
So not a long time at all. But I see it again. It's heavily in the bigger cities. It's more heavily. How can I say they're a bit more. They're clamping down on Airbnb properties. Again, you've got to have the right, consent with the mortgage companies. So, they will tighten. But again, I think it's in the smaller towns and suburbs and areas. I think there will be more growth with Airbnb and Booking.com and things like that. So
it's interesting. The reason I'm delving into this a little bit, I'm reading a book at the moment called The Four Horsemen, which is about Amazon, Apple, Facebook and Google being the four horsemen. And about 70% into the book, he started talking about who could be. This is by a chap called Scott Galloway, and he's got a great TED talk, and I found his TED talk, and that then led me to buying his book. And it's a fascinating book, and he talks about the power these four companies have got over the world. But they've been talking about who could be the fifth horseman. And they talk about Walmart. They talk about Uber. They talk about Tesla. And the other one they talk about is Airbnb. And now the only problem they say that Airbnb, because all of the other companies have got their own infrastructures, right? Whereas Airbnb don't, so they don't own any property, do they?
No, they don't.
But one of the things that they think they should have, perhaps, which is something that they might do in the future, and I'm just throwing it in here. I mean, it's not that interesting, but I just found it interesting, that they might have a concierge service in the cities, where people, they go somewhere where there is a central, people kind of check in, or if they need some support or some communication or something. It's not all done online. There's something physical that they can go to.
Having a physical presence.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Because if you had that, it might give people more confidence about the product, rather than having to risk it all themselves and test things out. So, but they say,
and it's in the ether, isn't it? It's something in the ether.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But they're saying Airbnb is the one to watch of potential kind of, like the other four, which is basically world domination, that Airbnb are probably the more likely company, even more so than, say, Microsoft. IBM, forget it, because they declined for 17 quarters. They've just been declining. Microsoft is doing better, but they're only doing better because they bought companies like LinkedIn. And so, yeah, Airbnb is one to watch at the moment, so they say. Good.
Well, that's good that that we're on that that platform. I think it's going to be a mixture of different platforms and different. You've got to try again. I know people that invest in Hungary, and I think in terms of having all your eggs in one basket, I think can be not the best thing to do.
No.
So but it's good. I think it's good. Again, as long as it doesn't get like with houses of multiple occupation, where the councils and things, they come down, obviously they don't want too many of these, so it's got to be sort of monitored and watched. And, they introduce new way, like they just move the goalposts, Michael, and you've got to, if you want to stay in it, you've got to do what it takes to move with it, I think.
I understand,
so, very interesting. Was that the Four Horsemen?
The Four Horsemen, by Scott Galloway, absolutely fascinating. Galloway. But if you have a look for his TED Talk, which was done back end of last year, October, I think, or something. Fascinating stuff, fascinating. Okay, so I've got a few more questions left, Will.
Go easy on me.
Yeah, I will. You've already alluded to it in terms of this year, what the direction that you're going into. But do you have a vision for your business, the kind of direction that it's going to be heading into? I know you've said more service properties, but what else?
Yeah, I think it's split between the two with working with the council and charities and things like that, because there's a massive housing shortage.
Yes.
So I think we're going to, split more of the portfolio between sort of helping on that side, on the social housing side where people need housing, and then also on the other side where people like to come into good houses and serviced accommodation. So definitely, more massive growth on, we want another 15 more properties. So, maybe 7 serviced accommodation and then 8 with the council or vice versa. So growing that way. And then obviously with the, I don't want to go into like big, massive development or anything like that, because I think that can eat your money. So I think we stay on the smaller side, where we can turn projects more quickly and they're not going to take, so add value to properties, again, by purchasing more as well and working with more investors. And I think, again, if this goes out to people, I'd like to, help people and give people fantastic returns on their cash. So yeah.
Fabulous.
That's where I see it going.
Okay. Now, this is the difficult one. If there was one bit of advice you would give aspiring business owners, what advice would that be?
I would advise people to, again, it's once you spot it, you got it. Once you see something that you really want to do and you're not going to stop at that, go for it. Because it's indecision. It's like the half pregnant thing. You've got to go at it and you've got to be prepared not to stop if you want it that much. And again, things will change and evolve. The business side, the business might change completely, but again, it evolves. So I'd just say to people, stick with it, keep working at it, keep trying to do the right thing, and you can't go wrong.
Brilliant. I love it. Absolutely. I mean, we make it more complicated than it needs to be. So I love that advice. Thank you. Yeah. And then the very last question, Will, I've got for you. How can people get in touch with you, and where can they locate you on the web and social media? So if you could share those, I'll include it in the show notes anyway, but if you could share those, that'd be great. Okay.
Well, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I don't use Twitter as much as I maybe should do, but I'm on those platforms. You can also find me on my website, which is unitepropertysolutions.co.uk. So you can get hold of me there. And again, just by linking in with me is a good one, or on Facebook, I think is, the two biggest sort of platforms I use, and happy to help in any way, shape or form.
And is the Facebook under Unite Properties or your own name?
Under my own name. We have got a page So yeah, you can find me on both, but it's better, I think, just on my own name, and again through LinkedIn, on my own name, through my own name, William O'Keefe. I'm more formal on LinkedIn, William O'Keefe. So, although on Facebook actually, I'm William as well. So yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed it, and it's such a massive field, the whole property side. So anybody out there that is listening, please get in touch with Will. He has a wealth of knowledge, as you've heard. And if this is an area you'd like to, this is an important area actually. And anybody, even people that are already in business and hugely successful, this is an area that they, you know, if they aren't already involved in, I'm sure they would like to be at some level. So go and speak to Will and see what you can do together and develop some sort of relationship. I know we will see each other either over a coffee one-on-one or at a networking event. So thank you so much for joining, Will. I really appreciate it.
And so, thank you so much for having me, Michael. Really appreciate it being on this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure.
See you soon.
See you soon. Bye now.
Staying Alive UK. Share your story.